on the call today for being patient with us. Okay, so can you guys see my screen now?
Beautifully.
Awesome. All right, let me start back up the first slide. Welcome to week 8 seminar. I can't believe we're already starting week 8. So I put this slide in because I was really hoping that today would be very spring-like. And even though it is a little warmer here in Farmington where I am, it is still not spring-like. So it's kind of wishful thinking. But I also wanted to put this here because I want you, as I was looking through all the different schools when you have your spring break, it's either this coming up month or the first part of March, which is when our class ends. So I just wanted to remind you all to think ahead and plan ahead when you're thinking about what is due when, so that when you have your spring break, you're not missing stuff that you should be doing. So I think all of us are fine, and Tony and Brandon can say yay or nay on this, but I think we're all fine if you work ahead or if you turn something in a little bit late, except for the discussions. We would like you to stay in sync with the discussions, otherwise they're not very discussion-like.
Absolutely. We're right on board with you, Carol.
Okay, so if at all possible, even if it's your spring break or whatever is happening in your life, if you can at least do the discussion. The assignments and stuff we can take early or late, but try to keep up as best you can. So there you go. That's my little plug for spring break and just planning ahead and kind of planning what you're doing so that you make sure you get everything in there. Okay, so some remembers. For this in week 8, your technology integration project, you should already have a plan all put together. By the end of this week, you should have your conference with your instructor if you have not already had that. And that conference is however your instructor has deemed that you do that. Okay, and you should be able to find that information, if you don't know, back on the home page of the course for your instructor. Okay, so make sure. Now, as I was talking with the students in my section, we talked about how if your technology integration project is due in week 11, then you probably ought to get started by week 7, which was last week. So if you haven't started yet, for sure, you need to start your technology integration project this week so that you have enough time to get your 4 weeks worth of integration in and collect your student samples to turn in as a part of that project. Please refer to that exact assignment in the course to see what all the requirements are, but these were just little reminders to think about. Okay, the next thing I wanted you to remember was if you have not yet presented your element, please make sure that you remember which date you have signed up for, that you've contacted your peers that you're going to be presenting with, and that you've worked on either co-creating or creating that presentation so that you're ready to go for your element. So just don't forget that if you haven't done it yet. And then if you have done your element presentation, will you please remember to go into that assignment and put a note so that us as instructors remember that we need to give you a score for having presented. Okay, that will help us a lot. The last thing to remind you is that each of your assignments that you've been working on, your digital citizenship, your management poster, your common formative assessment, your teaching philosophy, all of those different projects that you've been doing, your assignments, should be added to your digital portfolio. That will help so that when we go to do peer reviews this week, you've got something, okay? So make sure you've got those assignments added, and then don't forget that along with those assignments, you had to either evaluate it or get feedback. So make sure that reflection piece was also turned in with your assignment, and you are welcome to add those reflections as well in your digital portfolio. So those are the reminders. Okay. Any burning issues from anybody? Any like portfolio confusion or your draft or anything? We're going to talk about this for a minute. So go ahead and chime in if you have any questions. And Brandon or Tony, if you'll watch the chat.
Happily, you bet. I'm not seeing any, Carol, but there may come some here in just a moment. Is this a good moment to talk about what we were doing just before we started as far as the coordinating on that
Yes.
the folder?
Yes. So you want to make sure that you have at least a good rough draft. We know that the portfolio isn't due till week 12. So at least have some types of things in your portfolio so that we can do reviews this week, okay? Back in week 2, we asked you to put in the link to your digital portfolio in a document. And we have found that there are a couple of documents, maybe more than a couple of documents, somehow that got linked in our course. And so we don't have everybody on one document. So at the end of class today, we will fix that issue. And I will show you here in the, I think it's the next slide. It's a couple slides down, actually. I will show you the right link to click on to go to until we get those links fixed so that we're all in the right spot, okay? So just know, we know there was some confusion. We will fix it, but we will send you to the correct link for the document where you should have already posted your link, and if you didn't, we will fix it and make sure it's all there. And then that will be where you will go to get your peer review link to review someone else's, okay? So I've put on this slide here, I've put a couple of examples that I think came from last year's class, and hopefully they are still okay that we're using theirs as an example. We did have permission last year, but I didn't change them out this year. So anyway, they're still from last year. But those are great examples. So if you need an idea of what a completed portfolio looks at, here's 2 here. There's also 2 great examples in our course itself in that assignment. So I'll show you that in just a second. And then Brandon, I hope you don't mind, but from last year I also had your portfolio reflection as an example. So that's also linked here. So hopefully Brandon's still okay with that.
It's fine now, yes.
Awesome. Good. Okay. So the peer review requirements are that you make a copy of the rubric. I'll show you that in just a second. And then you'll want to fill that out and then make a clean link back in the peer review doc. But you also, and this is very, very important, you will also need to submit it as an assignment so that we can give you a grade on it. That's going to be really important. So let me switch over to where we see that information. Okay, so within our course, hopefully this is the page that's showing. You guys let me know if it's not. So this is the week 8 assignment, peer review of the final online portfolio project. Okay, so it says that you are going to thoroughly review a peer's final project portfolio and offer useful and effective feedback. You want to upload into Canvas that feedback, and your peer review will be due at the end of week 8. You should have added your outline or your link to your final project portfolio back in week 2. And so that's where we will make sure we have everybody correct on the list. So this first link, the peer review of the final project list, is a link to a document. We will make sure that this link is corrected after tonight's class. So in the meantime, if you'll go back to the presentation slides and use the link that is on this page due this week where it says doc. That's the one we want you to use. And eventually, by the end of tonight, we will get this one changed to that correct link. Okay, so hopefully everybody knows. So it should look something like this one, sort of. No, this one. It should look like this one, and it should say use this one at the top, okay, so that everybody knows we're on the correct document. This is the one that you will see when you go to the correct link. So this should have everybody's name with their link to their project. There's some notes that you can put here, and then this, as you can see in the example of Rachel, someone has already done a peer review for Rachel and has linked it back here. This person hopefully has also gone back to that week 8 assignment and submitted it here in the assignment section. Okay, so remember to do both. Put your link back on that document, but also turn it in as your submission, as your peer review for the end of this week. So that will be very important. So here's some ideas to consider as you post that response back to somebody. And let me just show you quickly. Where do I find it? Maybe it's here. Okay, the rubric itself, this is what it looks like. You're going to put in your name, the person who you're evaluating, and then there's a rubric which you can fill in the points here of what you think they got. And most important is this bottom part, the comments, feedback, and notes that you have for that person. Don't forget to do that part. So as you can see back on, this page, these are some questions to kind of consider. Suggest why you might see differently. Ask a probing or clarifying question. Share an insight. Validate an idea. Offer support. Expand their posting. Ask for evidence. So there's all these different ways. We do want you to be respectful and collegial, and we all know that nobody is completely finished. These are rough draft portfolios, right? But we do want to have some stuff in there. So if they have nothing, it's going to be hard to evaluate anything, right? So everybody should have at least something in their portfolio that they can go through and do this peer review. Okay, so back to what the rubric looks like. You'll notice on this page, you can just copy and paste this into a document, or right up here at the top, if you click on this link, it will ask you to make a copy of that rubric. And so that's why once you've made your copy and filled it out, then you're going to go and get a link to that document, which you just do up here, the share button in the corner, okay? And that's what you're going to submit here, and what you're going to put back on the document that says use this one. That's where you're going to link it back here in your peer link review. Okay, hopefully I've explained that clearly enough that you understand what it is that you're supposed to do for this week 8 assignment with your peer review of the online portfolio project.
Carol,
anything to add?
Yes, I would just like to add, if you're Tony's learner, one of Tony's learners, please don't call Carol or Brandon asking for clarification. Please call Tony. You've got my cell phone number, you've got my email. Promise I'll respond to you. Is that fair enough, Carol?
Yep. I will answer, but Tony would like to hear from you.
Carol will, but and probably would do a much better job. But
I don't know about that.
Please give me a call.
Okay, so let's see. I think that was it. Okay. Yeah. So spring break and due dates. Please remember that. You know what, I don't even know if we talked about this. I think this is left over from last year, but there's a possibility that during week 12 it won't be a live seminar, it will be a recorded seminar. But our class ends April 2nd. Am I right with that, Tony and Brandon? Make sure I'm correct.
Absolutely correct. Bang on.
April 2nd, everything, absolutely everything, has to be submitted and completed 100% by 11:59 that night. This is something UEN sets the dates on. They cannot be extended. So please make sure to plan ahead and make sure that everything is turned in by April 2nd. So coming up, week 8, that's this week, the end of this week, your portfolio draft and your peer review is due. During week 9, you're working on your technology integration project and your portfolio revision. Now that you've had a review, you'll revise that. And then week 10, you continue to work on your technology integration project and your portfolio work. Week 11 is when your technology integration project is due, and week 12 is when your portfolio is due. Okay, so now is the time to be working on all of that work. Okay, there is still reading and still discussion each week as well. So this week's reading is on Engaging Students, Chapter 7, and the element presentations today will focus on this. So I'm super excited for our element presentations. I just added into this slide this little thing that I liked. When I think about engaging students, I also think about who is it that's doing the work, the teacher or the student. And so this little thing came from Rigor and Relevance Framework. If you've heard of that before, it's from Model Schools and the International Center for Leadership and Education. And basically, if you're down here in these lower levels of higher order thinking, the teacher is doing most of the work. But if you get up into those higher levels of thinking and application, the student is doing more of the work and more of the thinking, and they are much more engaged. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If you want more information, you can click on the picture here of the framework and it will take you to that website.
Carol, may I interrupt just a second?
Yes.
One learner just wanted to make you aware that April 2nd is a Tuesday, so
Okay.
that particular date may have been from a couple of years ago or last year. It really is the 4th that is the last day of the class.
Thank you. I will change that right now.
Thank you so much.
April 4th is the correct date. Thank
you.
I appreciate that. Thanks for checking on that. Okay. Our discussion this week is on online models, and I thought this was particularly interesting. So what I want you to think about is, even though this might seem like it's very similar to last week's topic, what we'd like you to focus on this week are what are the elements of place-based instruction that can't be replaced or replicated or simulated in an online environment. So it's a little bit different thinking on the online models. So I'm excited for the discussion this week, so really be thinking about that, and the readings will help you to kind of formulate your thoughts on that. Okay, so again, this week, Technology Integration Project Goals and Plan is due. You need to have made sure that you've had your online conference with your instructor. Your final version with all your student evidence and a reflection is due week 11. This week the discussion is online models. You need to be working on your portfolio. Please get your examples all in there earlier than later so that when you get to the peer review this week that you have someone's to review. Okay, so here's the link right here, DOC. That's the link you want to use to find somebody to review and to put your link there to your review document that you create. Okay, so that's the one for sure that we will use. Okay, we are now to the time where we are going to be having our element presentations. And I'm pretty sure that every single person sent me a video that no one was able to attend live tonight. If you are on live, you are more than welcome to speak up, but I really am just going to go through and play these videos so that you can watch them. And the first one is from Courtney Wright. She did one part, and then Janelle Johansson did another part, so I'll switch partway through to their two videos, and it's on using academic games. Let me know if this is loud enough and if you can see it.
Hi everyone, I chose to do using academic games for my element to present. I also split it up with Janelle, so I'm only doing two parts. But I really wanted to do this element because I feel really passionate about this in my own classroom, and it is something I'm very good at using for engagement. I think it does wonders for getting your kids involved, making sure everyone's participating and everyone has a say, and just making things that could be extremely boring really fun for the kids, and just changing it up, varying your instructional strategies, and even the ways you give tests. I mean, these games give great data, so it's a great way to do that. So in the article, it talked about reasons to use academic games in the classroom. The first one, like I just touched on a little bit, is that it has the effect of causing major engagement in your class. Your kids love to play the games. They think that they're having so much fun when they're actually learning, which is a great way to get kids learning and paying attention. Students don't feel like it's a test or review, but teachers can gain great data, and students are still learning. So a lot of the games give you a report afterwards, which is really helpful. Just as easy as getting an exit ticket and fun for the kids. It also builds classroom community and teamwork, and it allows you to vary your instructional strategies to keep it different. And it is fast-paced, and it encourages that friendly competition, which is really fun in the classroom. And there are tons and tons and tons of technology resources for using games in the classroom, which is really the cool part. So looking into those, varying the different games you play. My kids love certain games, and then I throw in a new one, and they think it's just so exciting. So looking for all the resources that are out there. The first part of my element that I'm presenting was inconsequential competition. So kind of like I talked about before, games do encourage that kind of competition, and it allows the students to participate in a competition that's friendly and fun, but makes them motivated to want to learn. Making regular academic practice into a game or competition always just adds that extra element of fun to it and motivation. You can drag and drop with the smartboard or the Mimeo as a whole class to play a whole class game, or you can use Google Doc on the iPads or Chromebooks to do it individually, kind of like a SOAR, or they're dragging and dropping things. Online games, you can practice content. Polling technology is also awesome just for getting a feel of the room or how the kids are feeling, doing polls online. And some of my personal favorites for online games are Kahoot and Clickers and quizzes. They give you really great data, and they're really good ways to get the students involved in the learning and make sure that everyone has their response. The other part of the element that I was assigned was vocabulary review games. So there were a bunch of examples from the text, and I would go back and reread those if you're interested in this at all, because I just picked a few of my favorites and things that I hadn't heard of before. But going over vocabulary words, there's vocabulary for reading, there's vocabulary for math, so just keeping it interesting and doing something different helps them really internalize those words. The first one is called Word Harvest. It's a relay game in which students race to harvest and categorize vocabulary words. So it's just kind of turning those into a race and putting them in the categories. You can even go over parts of speech. It's a really great way to hit content. Name It, a relay game in which students grab pictures from a bucket and they have to describe it in one word. This kind of reminds me of headbands, but just a different way to do it. Puzzle Stories, a game where students assemble a puzzle and then have to write a narrative about it, which I thought would really be a fun center or just an activity to throw out there where they have to assemble a puzzle and then try to write about it, practicing their writing skills. Some other ones were Magic Letter, Magic Word. Students complete a fill-in-the-blank clue with the first letter hint, just kind of turning it into a game. Definitions, Methinitions. Students come up with several definitions and others have to guess which is correct, which would be really fun for the students to have to do as well and to be thinking about what the actual definition would be and what are some non-examples. Create a category. Students categorize 3 or more terms in as many ways as they can, and the students have to guess it. And then finally, with vocabulary review games, technology can also be used for a vocabulary review. Quizlet has some really cool flashcards, and they also have a live view now that you can play whole class games with. Really cool ways to go over vocab. And then you can split your class into teams and do a quiz game to see who gets the definition correct and quicker than the other team for points. Also, flashcards are super easy to make into PowerPoint and Google Slides and to send to the students. So, really fun ways just to practice your everyday content in a game format. Thanks.
All right, Courtney did an excellent job. We'll move on to Janelle.
Hi, I am Janelle Johansson, and I am presenting the first part of Element 25 using academic games. For Element 25, the teacher can adapt Popular games are used in inconsequential competition to re-engage students and focus their attention on academic content. This element works well for re-engaging students whose attention is beginning to slip, or to proactively maintain students' attention. There are 4 different strategies associated with this element. The first one is, what is the question? The second one is classroom feud. The third one is inconsequential competition. And lastly, vocabulary review games. I'm going to talk about the first 2, what is the question, and classroom feud, and my partner will do the second 2. So, what is the question? This is a Jeopardy-inspired game. Now, we're all old enough, hopefully, that we remember Jeopardy and we know how it's played. So the teacher will prepare a matrix with content-related categories, and each category will be given a numbered point value at the beginning of each row. The teacher will then put a clue in every cell in the matrix with higher point values corresponding to more challenging clues. And each one will be hidden from view. Students can play individually or in teams. A student or a team chooses a cell by calling for a category and a point value. So they will say taxes for 200, and then there will be a question associated with the difficulty of a 200 point question. Then the teacher will reveal the clues inside that cell, and the student or the team will respond, and their answer needs to be given in question form. If they get it wrong, then the other team can steal the question. This is a fun game, and it takes time to set up, but once you get a Jeopardy game set up, they are really fun to play with the class. The next thing I'm going to talk about is classroom feud. So, classroom feud is inspired by Family Feud. They take these TV game shows and turn them into classroom game shows. So in this one, the teacher again is going to generate a list of questions with at least one question for every student in the class. Then you're going to divide the class into 2 teams. Each team will select an initial spokesperson. Every time the teacher asks a new question, the role of the spokesperson rotates to a different group member. The teacher reads the question to Team 1, and the spokesperson for Team 1 has 15 seconds to discuss the answer with his or her teammates before responding on behalf of the team. If Team 1 answers correctly, it earns a point, and the teacher asks the students another question. If the students answer incorrectly, then Team 2 has the opportunity to steal the point and answer the same question correctly. If Team 2 answers correctly, they earn the points and steal the question. If the question is never answered correctly, then nobody gets points. This is great because it can facilitate the whole class. So playing Classroom Feud, and if you're using clickers with text input or polling software, you can use their mobile devices. You can use a random group generator to divide your class into teams, and that way there's no playing favorites, it's just randomly generated. And the teams can submit their answers using the polling devices, and whoever answers the fastest can earn points for their team, and they can contribute questions for the game. So this is a great way to, both of these games are great ways to get your students involved, turn learning into something more fun, gamifying your class. Anytime you can gamify anything that's being learned, the students will love it.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Okay, next up is Ruben, and he's doing Element 26, Managing Response Rates.
Hello everybody, my name is Ruben Nunez, and I'm doing the presentation right now about element number 26. It's about managing response rates. So I have different strategies here that we can talk about. So first of all, I have random names. So we have 2 ways of organize this in our classes. We can have a traditional way where we use these students' names on popsicle sticks. We all use this in our elementary and secondary classes. It's really useful. It's random picking of names, so it really works. Or we can use a technology tool to select random names. We can use tools such as TeamMaker or Flippity. I have here an example of Flippity. So this is one of my classes, and I created this with a Google spreadsheet, and I just need to click here, and I can choose the random student I want to participate, to answer a question, or to do anything in the class. So the good thing about Flippity is that you can divide your class in teams, 3 teams, 4 teams. It's really easy, and it's really useful for organizing your classes. So this is about random names. So talking about paid response, we have traditional way also that is that students answer questions one by one or in pairs. This is the traditional way of doing it, but technology gives us a lot of new things with digital tools such as Prezi, Google Slides, or total physical response strategies such as clickers like this using a QR code with your phone. You can check the answer with your students, scan the answers, and you have the feedback at the same minute in your board. So Clicker is a great tool to use for responses. So we can talk also about elaborate interrogation. So we have the traditional way where teacher poses a question and students come up with an answer using evidences. That's a great way to do it. But technology is giving us a lot of new tools to be able to be more interactive and more engaging and empower our students. So for example, polling technology is highly effective and gives the students a voice and a platform to respond and create different projects to show their knowledge. So for example, Mentimeter is a great tool you can use for interrogation, for polling, and for this objective in your class. And just to finish, we can talk about multiple types of questions that we can pose to our students. For example, in a traditional way, the teacher proposes different types of questions to promote inquiry. That's really important in our classes to work with projects and make our lessons engaging and give power to our students to come up with different solutions, different ideas, and learn through this project-based learning method. Technology is a great ally in this process, as we can use online tools to encourage deep thinking and class collaboration, such as Padlet. Padlet is a great tool that we can use to show our students how to collaborate all together. For example, I want to show you one of my classes using Padlet for a discussion. So for example, this was about, we're learning about South America, and we've been talking about Cuba. So this is a Padlet dashboard, and my students can write in there all their opinions, all their ideas. They can put pictures, they can do a lot of things, they can read each other. So it's a really, really useful tool that we can use. So that's my presentation about element 26. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ruben. That was excellent. Next, Lisa Price and Melanie Koenig on element 27 using physical movement.
I'm going to be presenting on the second half of element 27 using physical movement. The activity I'm going to be sharing is a corners activity. This was from the text, and then I'll share how I adapted it and used it in my classroom. The activity, basically, the teacher will post 4 different questions related to whatever you're teaching that are in-depth and discussion-rich. Like there'll be a lot of area for the students to discuss whatever the prompt is. And then the students will be organized into 4 groups, and they each go to the question that's posted around the room. So they're up, moving around, and getting some physical movement while they're also learning and discussing and talking together, figuring out answers to these questions that are posted around the room. in the text, the activity is very organized, and after the set limit of time, then you ring a bell or whatever, and then the students rotate to the next area, and they discuss and record their thoughts for that area. I adapted this. I liked the idea of the kids getting up and moving and looking around at the wall for the different things that they were learning from. So I had this Valentine's activity that I did. I had them do this the day before Valentine's Day. And I posted, there were about 10 different posts that talked about different things about Valentine's Day, about the history and how they celebrate it in different countries and stuff like that. And each of the students had a sheet that they were looking for certain things that were posted. And I just let the kids go from one card to the next at their own time. So they would read a card, and they were just scattered throughout the room, hanging on the wall and up on the board in different areas. So they were able to walk around and move at their leisure as they were filling out the paper. And for me, I really liked that. I thought it was very helpful to give them an activity that they could be moving, but then they're also learning while they were moving. So it wasn't like a break from learning. They were actually moving while they were learning. These are a couple other pictures that I took just to kind of show that some of the facts and the things that they were reading about, and then their page as they were filling it out and learning. So I really liked the activity and thought it went well. So I encourage you to use it in your class however you can.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll hear from Melanie.
I am going to review element 27, which is using physical movement. There are a couple different components that I am going to talk to you about and stretch. Brain breaks can be a great way for students to get a mental and physical break from sitting down in their seat. I think as teachers, we're often moving a lot throughout the day from our desks to the board, walking around and helping students, and we often forget that the students also need a little bit of movement in their day. You can very often see it in students who need a little bit of break when they're up or fidgeting or can't sit still in their seat. Although brain breaks do take some time to incorporate into your classroom, they can be done relatively quickly, in 1 to 5 minutes really, and they allow the remainder of your teaching time to be more effective. Breaks can be taken in the middle of a longer lesson or in between transitions as you're switching subjects or from the library to the classroom. It's also really good to take breaks as you are transitioning into a new or important concept. Take the break right before you do that so your students are ready to learn and energized to take in that information. Rather than just doing stretches, it's good to incorporate more physical types of movements. So it can be good to have students do things like jumping jacks or running in place, and then have them follow that up by a stretch that will calm them down and get them ready to return to their desks. The text also suggests using the interactive whiteboard or a timer on a projector or some other timer that is visual for the students, so they know when to expect a break. They also suggest doing a countdown timer while you're taking the break so they have an idea of how much time they have left to move around. Another great way to incorporate movement is to build it into your lessons. And so the text suggests a couple of ways, one of which is to have your students stand in a line and put problems on the board, and then have 2 students race to the board to solve the problem. In the meantime, your students who are standing in line are getting the movement they need. Another way to do that is to use clickers in the middle of the room, doing the same concept. Movement
break videos are also a really fun way to incorporate brain breaks. GoNoodle.com has a bunch of really fun videos where they have current music that students already know and they teach them dance moves. They also have some that are more academically based. So it has them counting by fives or repeating letter sounds. Jack Hartman also has some really great videos on YouTube.
I am a huge advocate of incorporating movement breaks into your classroom, and so I hope this video has helped introduce you to a few new ways to do that. Thanks for watching.
All right. Excellent. Okay, and our last one is by Nancy and Analia. And so we will watch theirs.
Hey guys, this is Nancy DeBride and Analia Warwood, and we're going to be talking about maintaining a lively pace. So here's a pretty presentation. So we read about maintaining a lively pace, and we're going to tell you what we learned. Okay, so the first thing it talked about in the chapter was instructional segments. So the teacher guides students through the many steps of a lesson. And there are different possible lesson steps, and they would be like presenting new content, practicing and deepening key knowledge and skills, getting students organized into groups, doing seat work, listening during transitions, distributing, scoring, and collecting assignments. Those are just some examples. Yeah, there's a ton of things teachers do during the lesson, but that's just a few of those things. Another thing it talked about was technology helps for instructional segments. So presentation software allows students to progress through a lesson on their own pace. And then here are some technology examples. So we are using a Prezi, and that's one of them. Another one would be to use Edpuzzles. You could also do PowerPoint or Google Slides. On each of those, you can have the students progress through the presentation, through the knowledge on their own pace. So that's good for those kids that need a little bit more time. Talking about pace, the next thing is pace modulation. So as a teacher, you can self-monitor the pace of your lessons and either speed up or slow down according to the engagement needs of your students. So some things that can help with your pacing to know if you're doing it at the right speed for your students is to poll your students. You could poll them using clickers.com. You could use clickers that you have in your classroom. I often use thumbs up, thumbs down because we aren't a one-to-one school, so that's easy. We can also do 4-finger rating where they put how engaged they are on their fingers, or you could do a Google form. And so this is a clickers example. So I just created this really fast. So how do you feel about the pace of our lesson today? And then they could hold up their little clickers card for A, if they think I'm going too fast and they're getting confused. B, if you're going too slow and it's getting kind of boring. Or C, if we're doing just right and we should keep up the pace that we're doing. So that's just a quick way that you can scan with your phone and see how they're doing. And then in conclusion, just be mindful of your students' engagement and adjust your pacing appropriately so that you have your students with you and you know that they are paying attention and that they're getting the most learning out of your lesson. Because if they're not paying attention, then you're pretty much just talking and no one. So, yay for maintaining a lively pace and making things engaging. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to everyone who presented tonight. Every single one of those were excellent presentations.
Carol?
Yes.
I did have a question on the chat talking about games.
Okay.
The question was, what about those students who can't keep up with fast-paced games or games aren't fun for them? How has anyone worked with that?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I'm wondering if anybody on the call has a suggestion for that.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. If anybody has an idea on what do we do for those kiddos. I'm one of those kiddos. I I hate video games, but everybody else in my life seems to love them. And so I feel very left out all the time because I really don't want to play a video game. However, I do like other games, like puzzles and strategy games like that. So I'm wondering if part of it is just to vary what you do so that you're not just sticking with one particular type of game. Could be, one way that you could get all of those modalities. Anybody else?
Carol?
Yes.
I see it in differentiation. Like you said a moment ago, some are doing video games, someone else is working on something else. You may have 2 or 3 things going on in your class at a time. And I've had people that have said, hey, you're having fun with that group. I want to go over to that group and try that. Can I show you one thing with the video games I just have to share here? You know, it's hard to see.
Do you need the screen?
No, I'm going to put it up here. Can you see my finger? See that little mark right there?
Yep.
I am healing. We bought our grandson, he's a sophomore in high school, a virtual reality headset for Christmas. He said, Grandpa, come over here and show me how you box. So I start boxing, and I have it on. Oh my gosh, this is incredible. I see my hands and I'm moving. It's just freaking me out. And this little weak, of course, I pick the little weak guy. I don't pick Mike Tyson. The little weak, I've got to knock this guy out or my grandson's going to be worried about what I'm doing here. And so I'm just slugging away as fast as I can. And moving around, trying to find I move around over to his metal area on his wall, and I hit the metal thing. I didn't break any of his metals, but I did open my finger up down to the bone. So you have to be careful with some of these activities.
Yes,
that's my last virtual reality.
Unless you do it in a padded area, right? Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else have anything to chime in on that? Okay. I think we're okay to move on. But thank you for those examples and great question. Loved that. So coming up next week for element presentations, Lindsay, Tara, Candace, Heidi, Emily, Leslie, Philip, and Christina. That's who we have signed up currently. So make sure you guys are ready to go for next Thursday at 4 o'clock. And it's Tony's
turn.
Absolutely. Tony will be doing the presentation, so you'll want to make sure that if you have a link or a video that you send that to Tony so that he is ready to go with it for next week. Awesome. Great job, everybody. Anybody have questions for us? If you do, please get in contact with us. Here's our information again. Hopefully you know it really well by now. If there's not any more questions, then thank you for joining us tonight, and hopefully we will see you all at USET next week. All right, thank you.
Love your leadership. Thanks. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Carol.